Hi friends, I have another library haul. Yes, I do. This is not middle grade. I will link below my library haul for middle grade, March. Had to do those separate because there were several middle grade. This is inspired by the prize lists, the long list that came out for the Women's Prize for Fiction, Carol Chill's Prize for Fiction, I think a few others. There's crossovers, but I'm mainly going to talk about the Women's Prize for Fiction, which I'll link below my reaction video. I did look at the Carol Child's Prize long list without doing a reaction video, but we're here. I like the list. It looks pretty good, and we'll talk about some of the books on it. And I also did purchase a few books that are on the long list. So how do we want to do this? Let's start with the one that I already had, that I have recently read for the BookTube prize, that is on both lists, both the Women's Prize for Fiction and the Carol Child's Prize. And that is A Guardian and a Thief by Megha Majumdar. Since I read this for the BookTube prize, I can't tell you my reaction to it yet or my rating. That will be coming up in another video. Then I also, on the Women's Prize for Fiction, is an author that I have read one of her works and loved it, and I knew I wanted this book. It's been out for a while and I've resisted getting it, but when it came out on the prize list, I was like, gotta get it. And that is Heart the Lover by Lily King. I've heard so many people rave about this book. I read Lily King's Writers and Lovers, and this kind of opens in the synopsis with a line that says, "You knew I'd write a book about you someday." Okay, so the narrator, she meets two students, Sam and Yash, in her lit class, and they're best friends living in the elegant house of a professor on sabbatical. The boys invite her into their intoxicating world of academic fervor, rapid-fire banter, and raucous card games. They nickname her Jordan, and she quickly discovers the pleasures of friendship and her own intellectual ambition. So I love Lily King, so definitely going to read that. Also, from the Women's Prize, let's talk about those that I got out from the library. I got Dominion by Addie E. Kitchens. And this one was about the Reverend shepherds. His church believes in God, his own privilege and enterprise. He owns the barber shop and the radio station, and generally keeps an iron hand on every aspect of society in Dominion, Mississippi. He and his wife have 5 boys. The youngest is called Wonder Boy. He sings prettier, runs faster, and turns many heads, but Wonder Boy, his father, and all the structures in place that keep them on top are not as righteous as they seem to be. And this reminded me of another book that I've read, Revival Season. So I'm really, really interested in getting to that one. This next one, I've had it out from the library before, and I knew it was a chunker, and I would like to read it. Can I read a chunker right now? I don't know if I have the attention space for it, but I got it from the library. Flashlight by Susan Cho. This is about a daughter and father who go out into the water, and the father can't swim, and he disappears. The little girl is 10 years old. She's the only child of parents who have severed themselves from the past. Her father, Sirk, is Korean, was born and raised in Japan, and he lost touch with his family when they bought into the promises of post-war Pyongyang and relocated to North Korea. Her American mother, Anne, is estranged from her Midwestern family after a reckless adventure in her youth. And then there is Tobias, Anne's illegitimate son, whose reappearance in their lives will have astonishing consequences. And it's about Louisa and Anne going through life not without the husband, and then these other people come into their lives, and also the historical significance of an American mother and a Korean father who was raised in Japan. Yeah, there's just a lot of connections there that made me very curious about this family. And then the other one from the women's prize that I'm interested in, I'm really interested in it because the cover, I've seen it in bookstores and it grabs you. And that is Moderation by Elaine Castillo. And you can kind of see the heads of the people are, yeah. Anyway, this is about Girly Del Mundo works a day job as a social media moderation center, flagging and removing the very worst of what makes it onto the internet. She's good at it too, dispassionate and flinching. She's learned the value of cauterizing her emotions and tackling tasks with procedural aplomb, especially when any success must be stacked against the harrowing churn of global crises beyond her control. When the company offers her a big pay raise in an office to start moderating its new venture, virtual reality theme park, stunning simulations of civilizations long since dead, Girly takes the job. And then it's about that job. So it sounds interesting. It also sounds scary with, how our lives are so much online, and now with the rise of AI and all that. It's scary. On to the Carol Shields Prize long list, which I'll link the websites for these below so you can see the full list. And I got 2 of them from the library. I think I have a couple others on hold. And then I bought 2 that my library didn't have. They just sounded really interesting to me. Let's talk about those first. This is Lion by Sonia Walger. And it's about a father and daughter, and the father is kind of does a lot of things and a lot of dangerous things, hence the skydiver on the cover. And it kind of it has 2 timelines, and the daughter in LA, who's an actress, and then looking back at her childhood. She grew up in England, Argentina, and Peru, and having a father that, how did they describe him? A polo player, race car driver, a cocaine addict, ex-con, pilot, and skydiver. So chaotic sounds like it. And the other one that I got is Sea Poison by Karen Baleen. And what got me about this is it's a woman in her 40s who is dealing with an autoimmune condition. She works at an upscale grocery, Sea and Poison, and she starts a medication that helps with her autoimmune condition. She's required to have an eye exam, and it leads to a nightmare laser eye surgery. A laser shoots into her brain, making her language spare and her sentences clauseless, a vexing constraint that stalls her book on genealogical malpractice. I mean, that sounds like it could be a mess, and it could be really interesting. Okay, and then The Edge of Water is about a mother in Nigeria who kind of gets a premonition that her daughter in America is in danger. In spite of the warning, she allows the daughter to go on her own path. Amina arrives in New Orleans filled with hope, and just as she's getting used to it, a hurricane comes, threatens to destroy the city. And so it's that time, but also years later, she's left to question things about her mom and the family she didn't know in Nigeria. And then on the Carol Shields Prize, they actually had, they do include or accept short stories, works of fiction, and also graphic novels. And this was a graphic novel that's on the list. This is Canon by Lee Lay. And it's basically about a woman, or protagonist, Canon, who suffers kind of they term it a nervous breakdown. It could be, me being in psychology, I want to call it what it probably is a manic episode, or a fugue state, time of psychosis. But basically, we start in a restaurant that is smashed to bits, and tables and chairs upended, and under all of that, you find the main character, Canon, is dripping in little beads of regret sweat. So that really caught my attention. I'm not a huge graphic novel reader. I just haven't really gotten into them, but I was curious, so I got that out of the library. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other books that are on the Carol Shields Prize. We have Milktooth by Jamie Burnett. So Milktooth is about, I'm reading this off my laptop, Sorsha, who made the most of her 20s, had a lot of hookups, and now in her 30s, she wants to have a baby. And she meets Chris, and things get serious fast. Chris's moods turn volatile. Sorsha becomes increasingly isolated. Chris paints an idyllic picture of domestic bliss in Cape Breton. Sorsha becomes pregnant. The abuse escalates in the relationship, and she's kind of isolated. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get access to this book, but it's kind of about that escaping a violent relationship. Then we have Suddenly Light by Nina Dunick, and this is a short story collection. It's a short story collection, different characters, different stages of life, dealing with different things that kind of weave us together. It is kind of hard to sometimes describe a short story collection. Then we have Canticle by Janet Rich Edwards. It's set in 13th century Brugge. It's a debut novel about a spirited young woman's explorations of faith, agency, and love among a community of fiercely independent women. So our 16-year-old protagonist is promised in marriage by her father to a merchant that she doesn't love, and she runs away from home and finds a community of religious women who refuse to answer to the church. It sounds interesting to me. Then we have Hellions by Julia Elliott. And this says, in plague-stricken medieval convent, a nun works on a forbidden mystic manuscript. This is a short story collection. In rural South Carolina, an alligator named Dragon becomes a beloved pet for a precocious, tough-talking 12-year-old. During a long, muggy July, an adolescent girl finds unexpected power as her family obsesses over the horror film The Exorcist. So it goes on talking about the other short stories in that collection. Let's see. And then we have Casualties of Truth by Lauren Francis Sharma. It says it's a riveting literary novel with the sharp edges of a thriller about the abuses of history and the costs of revenge, set between Washington, D.C. and Johannesburg, South Africa. I do remember reading this one that it sounded really interesting to me, and I was going to try and find a copy of it. And then we have The White Hot by Chiara Algeria Hughes. This is a debut novel. April is a young mother raising her daughter in an intergenerational house of unspoken secrets and loud arguments. Her only refuge is to hide away in a locked bathroom, her ears plugged into an ambient soundscape and a mantra on her lips. Dead inside. That is until one day, as she finds herself spiraling toward the volcanic rage she calls the White Hot, a voice inside her tells her to just walk away. And then she wanders, so it follows that journey for her. Then we have Audition by Katie Kitamura. I've heard about this book. Isn't it on the Women's Prize for Fiction? Yes, it is. So it's also on the Carol Shields Prize. And it's one woman, the performance of a lifetime, or two, a mesmerizing novel that asks who we are to the people we love. And two people meet for lunch in Manhattan. One is an actress in rehearsals for an upcoming premiere, and the other is an attractive, troubling, young enough to be her son. I've heard mixed things about that. I don't think it was available for my library. I'm gonna have to look again, because it also I might be able to get the audiobook if I decide I want to try it. This one I did ask about at my local indie bookstore. It's called Wildlife by Amanda Leduc. She wrote the nonfiction Disfigured on Fairy Tales, Disability, and Making Space. And that's one of my all-time favorite nonfictions. And so this is her novel. Follows two walking, talking hyenas as they interact with humans over decades. So I love animals. I'm not always big on animals as the main characters in books. Unless it's like The Art of Racing in the Rain, which was one of my favorite books, but I'm not sure about this. It sounds kind of weird. And it's a disabled author. I want to support her. I may just end up ordering it and seeing what I think about it, but it is out by a Canadian press, and my indie bookstore was not even able to order it. So I'm gonna have to see if I can get my hands on that one. And then The Morgue Keeper by Ruyan Meng. Born into a family devastated by the rise of Mao Zedong, the author came of age during famine, persecution, and fear. The Cultural Revolution of the 60s branded innocents as enemies. Friends and relatives vanished overnight, sent to labor camps, or lost to madness. For years, silence was a means of survival. But after the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989, Meng's last hopes for change were extinguished. She fled China, leaving behind everything she knew, and began a new life in the United States. And then The Morgue Keeper is a debut novel drawn from historical precedents and from experience itself. Based on true events, it's a rare and urgently needed perspective on a society controlled by a tyrannical despot. So I am interested in this one, but wasn't able to get it yet. I'm definitely going to try to get that one. Then we have The Sea Gives Up the Dead by Molly Alguan. This is a collection of short stories sprinkled into the soil of fairy tale, left to take root and grow wild there. A lovesick nanny slays a dragon. The devil tries to save her mother. A girl drowns and becomes a saint. And goes on to more stories. This just doesn't sound like something I'm interested in. And then, yeah, then the other ones I have here with me, I will be reading them. I don't know that I'll read them before the shortlist is announced. Once I'm done with the books that I'm reading for the BookTube prize, I'm going to give myself some time to mood read. Yeah, so let me know in the comments below if you've heard of any of these books, if you're interested in them, if you've read them, if you would like to hear my reviews of them when I hopefully read them soon-ish. Definitely consider subscribing. I hope you all are doing well and having some good books to read, and I will see you soon. Bye.